Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting order and get underway. Would you like to take the roll call, please?
Alderman Holford?
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman? Here. Dennis Sheehy?
Yes.
And Joe Mercado?
Here. All right, thank you much. If you join me now for the pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
All right, item 2 on our agenda tonight, citizens comment period. I'm presuming, Nate, you're going to join and talk to us on the agenda item. So, anyone else on the citizens comment? Hearing, seeing none, close the citizen comment period. Let's move on to item number 3 then, which is the approval of a series of meetings that we had in October, primarily related to budget review for 2023. So, first one is minutes of October 5. They're in your packets. Had a chance to look at them. Any comments, suggestions? Otherwise, we'll take a motion. Move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes for October 5th, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Motion carried. Thank you. Next meeting is the following day, October 6th. Budget review time, what fun. Minutes are attached. Again, we were continuing the departmental reviews. Everybody's had a chance or comments on those minutes. Otherwise, we'll take a motion to approve. Move to approve. Do you have a second? Second from Ed. Any further discussion on the minutes dated October 6th, 2022? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next meeting was October 11th. Continuation and kind of the wrap-up of the budget review. Comments and kind of the wrap-up of the budget review. Comments and notes are listed. Any further discussion or comments there, changes? Otherwise, we'll take a motion for move to approve for October 11th, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Now, I'm presuming with Nate here, should we just go ahead and talk building and solid waste?
Doesn't matter, either one is.
Let's go ahead and do that. I'm sure Nate's got things to do other than sit at the City of Franklin on a Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, but you want to make some comment, or what's the pleasure?
The pleasure of the group is that Peggy put together a brief analysis kind of looking at, so there's 3 scenarios that are presented that were in the packet. And so she did all the work. I'm not going to take any credit. I looked at it. So everybody should have that page that looks like this. This is where we were. Yeah, Peggy was trying to show some comparison.
So basically, yeah, I can walk you through it. Basically, we have just some years of history on there. Going back to 2016, it'll show you what are when we had a new contract, revised the contract in 2020. All of that time it was on CPI. You'll see in the second column on the top, there was an original increase that was done during that time. This winter, when I at the John's for 2022, noticed that 1 and 2 contacted John's, went through the effect of that was approximately $37,000 in 2020. Just recently check for $10,600 back from them. The portion that already been billed portion that's already been billed in current and prior years. So that's been taken care of. But with that said, 2021, the actual increase was the 1.2%, of course, low at that time. Actual cost we paid was $1,580,000. Then cost we paid was $1,580,000. Then in 2022, what happened with inflation? I went 4.7 on an annual basis, and that calculated total, because we're not done with 2022, we're going to pay approximately $1,585,000, and that's based off of the current number of we have 11,000, or I should say, equivalent units. Some of them might be multi-family. We do up to a 3 this contract, and then some mobile home parks that have multiple. So that 11,590 we rates. You also received in your pack choices, basically, and really this is how good is any of our crystal balls, right? So the first option is a 5-year agreement. I'm going to preface that with, just keep in mind, we have not bid out these services since 2009. And we know that in our world, competition is paramount, so that's really kind of a problem of us. Best practice is at least once every 7 years. So the first option would be a 5-year agreement, 4% increase in just the first year, 23 CPI increases with no limit for 27, and then no fuel surcharge. That's option number 1. You can see the cost 7, and then no fuel surcharge. That's option number 1. You can see the cost. How much is it increasing over? And then option 2 would be a 3-year agreement. It has a 6% increase in 2023, but it also holds a max, a CPI max of 6. But it also holds a max, a CPI max of 6 throughout the life of the 3-year agreement. But then it does add a fuel surcharge on that fuel surcharge. And then the last line, option 3, the last column, is a 1-year agreement, 8%. For CPI is a 1-year agreement, 8% for CPI. It's meant to be CPI. CPI is running 7 right now for the year, and it does include a fuel surcharge. Now, with the exception of the fuel surcharge, that's the same exact terms as our current agreement. So if our agreement didn't come, that's the same exact terms as our current agreement. So if our agreement didn't come due this year, it would be, etc. So the fuel surcharge that's added to 3-year agreement, 1-year agreement, option 3, equal approximately 45,000. So basically, and that, again, that's approximately 45,000. So basically, and that, again, that's based on a set of assumptions where you, I just picked a $5.09 rate, roughly where it is right now. So if it was between 505 and 509, it would be an extra. Let me put in the package. You'll see the proposal between 505 and 509. It's a 2.64%. So that's what is included in times. So there's benefits and drawbacks to all of these. Of course, the fuel surcharge matters. The 1%, you can see what the cost looks like. So not having a crystal ball and not knowing where CPI is going to go or where fuel charges are going to go, I think it's really important for the way so you know that diesel has gone down this last month. That looks like.
Why didn't we go out for bids this year?
Oh, well, because we had a few things going on this year. Just trying to keep our heads above water. And very honestly, we could have went out to bid in May, and there's a new provider in the area, so there are options out there. But there was a lot of turmoil on it. So it is what it is. I can't project what it might have been.
We at least look at what some of the other municipalities are paying.
It's really hard. It's really hard to do an apples-to-apples comparison. You have to have a city that's about your size, that has all parts of it. Like some of them just use the hauler for different things. Most municipalities do their own collection. Municipalities of any size, so you can certainly go do collection. Municipalities of any size, so can certainly go do all of those checks. We were kind of at where we were at this year. We had a short-term decision, but all that would go into an RFP process. But there is a new provider that wasn't in the market. Past that. There is a new provider that wasn't in the market. Past that. Certainly be an option. That's already contacted.
Aren't you
Well, the council can make an exception on that. They've done it on other. This is not a commodity. This is a professional service. So the council again, commodity. This is a professional service. So the council again, make a go for bid, doesn't have to do a low price bid. So the council can waive that for this time, or they can say no. But basically, we haven't been since 2000, so it obviously wasn't too important to people in the past. I think it's very critical. I think it's paramount to what we do. But again, where we're at today, and
We're happy with the service.
I believe we're really happy with the service. You know, I've worked in a lot of communities, a lot of different variations of refuse and recycling.
Just this new provider in the area, is it new to the area or new in general, or just they're just trying to get into this area? Are they an established entity? My question.
Not that much about them.
Okay.
I really haven't gone into it. I mean, like I said, there's options.
Okay.
There's one thing that's different in some. But right now, we don't own any carts. John's owns all of the carts. So of course, in our rates, the carts are factored into that. How long, how much? That the proof is in the pudding. We don't really know what that secret sauce is, but I think if we went out to bid, we'd probably want to look at that a little closer. Because there are really good opportunities to buy your carts and have your service go down, and that you have to do. So there's goods and bads that come along with all of those.
And who would be responsible? Give you one guess.
Well, the contract per se, the operation side of it is managed by currently, to the extent that.
I don't know too many departments in the city that have extra capacity on additional projects, delivery of carts.
Right. I mean, well, that's usually done by your contractor. So basically, you would
If you're buying the carts.
if you bought the carts, you could get them all delivered. You keep replacements. Exactly. So it would be another option.
Got replacements, and then somebody's run over by the whatever.
Damage.
One parts, whatever. I'm curious. The 6% is in the 3-year deal, but not in the 5-year.
Yeah, we checked with Johns, and they said these are the three options.
If you're willing to cap the CPI at 6% for years 2 and 3, why is it different?
Just the law is about the same as. So even for us, 5-year half of CPI 4%, and we felt that's like a bit nervous. Our costs go. So to put a big limit on it, I understand how the limits and you guys are up against that. Limits and you guys are up against that. You know, that's our job too. But we're seeing us rise. So in our opinion, CPI has always been a very fair metric because when we're doing better, CPI is lower, and we would need more. We're doing better, CPI is lower, and we would need more. Our ugly higher in fuel and wages, etc. Generally, we feel that.
You do City of Greenfield, correct?
Yes.
Who else in the immediate area?
We're only in southeastern Wisconsin. 5 municipalities, so we 13 Waukesha County. Last year, started sitting in Berlin with the guys, Village of Caledonia, Norway, fairly, don't have a big area, but we're fairly dense.
And how is the recycling side of it going? Is
Worst
there
it's ever been.
the worst, as in no.
Worse than, those of you who were on council when I was here. So we're just that low. So easy terms, landfill generally costs about $50. Recycling profit or offset cost. That currently costs more goes of or processing market recycling. And that's coming off of, I was here, we changed the contract weekly, we made some change, got better. Last, you almost can't sell cardboard or paper right now.
Really?
Why do you suppose that is? Curiosity.
Right now, we don't know. Last time, we kind of knew what was going on. I was just talking with one of our operations guys to the meeting and said, leading into Christmas, they always sell more paper and cardboard. There's boxes of wrapping paper that are their bills, state, local, crap, the big ones, not even buying. So what happens with that right now? It's kind of an ugly, very volatile.
Hey, didn't we say logistics probably?
I'm sure that's a portion. How far down the rabbit hole you go, I don't know. There's a lot of problems right now in terms of COVID, and we got factories versus consumers. We're reliant on what they do and how they get it here.
Out, like, farms or
The long story is we don't really have a contract with them right now because it was never executed back in 2019. So I'm going to say in a contract, certainly right.
Well, I mean, if I was gonna enter into a 5-year agreement, I want to make sure that if it was performance related, that I had an out. I mean, who knows what the labor market's gonna be 3 or 4 years down the road. What your costs are. Much happier with you guys and with management. Far less problems. So, I mean, I'd like to see you, but the numbers.
Nate, what's the value of 2 30-yard dumpsters for 4th of July? What's best guess?
13, 14 bucks. The big thing with those is that's a big deal that we had where we've donated them every year. When there was a year that it fell through and caused a lot of pain, a little late, so the agreement is always there.
So it's a goodwill. So it's a goodwill gesture.
Did I hear we are operating without a contract presently?
We have agreed upon rates. The structure, we just don't have.
So is there automatic extension to that, or we're just operating under the same, rolling it forward, or?
We're operating under the contract that the council back in.
Any other questions, comments, discussion points?
I have an idea in my head what I would do. You have a preference?
No, I'm really struggling with this. My head says the right thing to know. My head says the right thing to do. Do option 3. I know what that looks like on paper right now. I don't know. I've been studying CPI rates for the last few weeks, going back to the early 1900s. I've been following diesel pricing. I've been following diesel pricing I've got reports on here back, tens of years. It's anybody's guess, but the first option, the 5-year agreement, number one, competitive competition involved. We have an unlimited CPI, which over the years you will see CPI stays at a higher level and cycles, whether that's 4 years or 9 years, but it seems to be cycles. That first agreement scares me because we're locked in for 5. First agreement scares me because we're locked in for 5 years and limit. The second one, I do like that cap a lot. That was something special that we asked for when we met. But that's still 3 years. So when I look at the difference between years and dollars, could we make things better? Yes. Could we make things absolutely? So again, and I'm not saying how to bid is going to change the provider, but in our world, that's new. So I'm more leaning towards the 1 year.
With the proposed recession,
Well, that's the question.
I mean, that would.
Is it going to? It's
If
been
we
going to
had
happen
that,
for
we
2
had-
years. So yeah, exactly. If we could predict that, we would all know. Us and the providers would know where we're at. But your option, I just think that this option.
Diesel's an interesting one because I was just listening to some reports that they're talking about severe shortages by maybe by the end of
It could go anywhere.
yeah, exactly.
Good.
Part of its capacity.
Right.
And that then would lead you to a 5-year agreement.
Yeah, I can't tell you the last time I put our vehicle less than $5 a gallon. And I was told 5 is probably good. Look for
Ask a question, Nate. When you come up with your numbers, what comparators do you use? Do you use other communities similar to ours, or what are you basing it on?
For your rates for next year, for example, our proposed rates.
Yes.
Yeah. Largely what we do is we freeze the material. Move to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, look at the surrounding communities, but you guys are, again, landfill, for what its value is, but in that you guys are the cheapest if lowest price. So that's value of homes.
And you look at history, obviously, right? And the data you used for the kind of backlog on recyclables, is that just your own internal data, or are you using external data as well? Internal
Because
data?
we are, in this case, because we are your processor of recyclables
Okay.
as well.
But do you have any comparators for that from other recycling outfits as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Comparators for that from other recycling outfits as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As a municipality, is there anything you could do to help you be more efficient in cost control?
Runs really well, and I think I understand really well, and I think I understand. But from a service standpoint, quality of service, efficiency standpoint, we're very close to that, all the infrastructure in place, and down to works. Back to my route manager, hey, yard waste pickup for the, how many homes are there? 5, call it, we have. So, at least, quality is.
All right, any other questions? Nate, do you have anything else you want to add?
They like to keep working with you guys. You are a very large account for us. And for need to help us to establish here, 45 there, relationship with you. I would say, from a finance perspective, I don't like the idea of paying for the meeting. We don't currently have it in any of our contracts. Next year, we're starting 5 new accounts. All have it. So I would love to see a 5-year deal and not have to deal with that, knowing that ride a wave on that. That's how our works. So today we really like to.
How many vehicles do you have in the city? Because you're picking up 5 days a week, right?
Possibly 4 to 5
Each day.
as a general consideration. So 5 municipalities from North Bay of 7 homes up to New Berlin.
Hey, Dennis, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, absolutely.
With fuel surcharge, right? I've seen this in the past go as a company.
It's a CYA is what it is.
Yeah.
So this year we hit about.
Okay.
So for us, $2 up or down. We budgeted, but ultimately worth it. So we don't view it as a profit center.
Okay.
That is, don't want to do it. Nickel and dime provider that does that.
Okay, no, that's fair. I'm familiar with it, and I've seen some people really profit from it.
Question: do other communities such as New Berlin do recycling?
I would say, so New Berlin, as an example, they are every other week. We quoted it both ways. A lot of the reason they hired us was they were just provider. It's not a bid situation. Provider. It's not a bid situation. It's the #1 industry trend. So we just did on the Delafield, for example, awarded that. Asked us twice. We didn't even put every other. The administrator called me. Why wouldn't you do that? And I said, it's not going to work for you. I'd rather see a extra $50 a month or whatever their cost was. I would be happy that constantly without parts being unhappy.
Driving down the street, I suppose it's overfilled and stuff hanging out more so than the trash. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think the volume. All right.
The only negative I'll throw in there is just added New Berlin. I saw a nice shiny new one of your trucks up in Berlin.
Got shiny new trucks.
Yeah, haven't seen it yet.
Well, you know what? If the supply chain fixes itself, we can get a couple of more. Well, you know what? If the supply chain fixes itself, we can get a couple of more shiny new ones. We're trying.
All right. Have anything else for Nate? Otherwise, we can. What do you want to do with this? Come back and visit it later? Go back to the financials or council recommendation? I'm going to make a recommendation that we table this for short term and go back to item number 4. Denise, you want to walk us through that? And
Right, so September was what you received by email and also in your packet tonight, and then By Your Places was October. We literally just closed that up and got those published. So I'm happy to walk through it. I can give you some of the high points, but I'd also open it up if you had a chance to look at them and you have questions. Feel free. One of the things I did want to point out was if you look September to October in the general fund, I had mentioned that we were doing basically an assessment of the property taxes, and in September it looked as though we were under budget, but if you look at the second page in your October packet in the general fund, you can see all those journal entries have been made, and we are right on track for both the income taxes as well as general. Let's see, talk a little bit about the general fund. Like I mentioned, the licensing and permit revenue is running, excuse me, a little over budget year to date, and investment income has improved a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit of improved rates on some of our places where we have our funds sitting, so that's good news. Year-to-date expenditures, they are running underspent. There's not a lot of changes to reasons why. It's still largely due to open positions. A great deal of that in the public safety. We've talked about that as well. We have, but at the time in September, they had 5 open officer positions. I couldn't tell you if that's still the same. I know that they were.
Actually, PFC just met today and they 500.
Oh my goodness, that's terrific. There you go.
That's
to
all
hear.
police?
Getting better, yes. I mean, so road until it can really favorable with this.
Great. And then I, mentioned also that another area that we were running under is in general government. That is also due to some open positions, services for the assessors. That has been caught up now. Overall, we were looking at a $4.2 million surplus. And as I mentioned, that looked a little unfavorable at the time, but that is largely due to that property tax revenue that let's see. I mean, we can talk about, we'll mention solid waste. The revenues through September are $2 million and are running just slightly ahead of budget year to date. We had the rate correction ahead of budget year to date. We had the rate correction, as Peggy mentioned in the analysis, and through September for collection and tippage is still running about 6.6% ahead of budget due to the budget due to the guy. We've talked about the TIF districts a number of times as well. The TIF number 3 did have its final accounting report that went through in October, was submitted to the state. We had an audit from LA, and so that is closed as far as the state is concerned.
We're still.
And so that is closed as far as the state is concerned.
We're still looking at signing the letter so we can have the audit completed for the December.
And we'll have some funds coming back from that one.
Correct, yep, it'll show it was very,
From that one.
correct, yep, it'll show it was very, very dollars. So we'll have in the distribution part of the audit, we'll have what's going to everybody, all the taxes. We'll get that over.
Thank you to,
That is closing in 2020.
anything else on the September? I mean, I see that the budget surplus is 4.1, and then October looks like it's running about 4 points. I would imagine some of that's gonna back or through right to the red. Is there anything else that's, I guess, alarming to you with 45 days, 40 days left to go?
I think alarming, but just keep in mind, we aren't gonna bring in revenue. The revenue there when we're spending money, so.
I got a
Just,
couple
it kind of
questions.
equals things.
John, go ahead.
Okay, is there any reason why the general fund summary's in there twice?
In the September packet?
Yeah.
It's, so the way it's been presented in the past was, and then after that it's revenues, then it goes to expenses. So it's, I guess, a one-pager, and then on a quarterly basis, it's been provided in more detail. So that's what the difference is. If you look in October, on a monthly basis, it's only provided the one-page summary.
This is the same exact statement in there twice. Page 7 and 9.
I would say that's a mistake.
The unearned revenue in the general fund, the 272,768,000, that's taxes. Fund balance sheet. Page 13. Their unearned revenue and unclassified.
I would actually, I'll have to look into that. I'm not 100% sure what all pieces are falling in under that liability.
Okay, tourism,
Excuse me, John, that was the September, isn't that the reclass, John, that was the September, isn't that the reclassification of the taxes?
yeah, that's what I thought.
On the balance sheet?
Yeah,
Yeah, because I
Okay,
think
you're right.
in
You're
October
absolutely
it's
right.
gone, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You're correct.
I think that's the
I
bulk of
just
it.
wanted
but
to
I
make
wa-
sure of that, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and tourism,
I think that's the
I
bulk of
just
it.
wanted
but
to
I
make
wa-
sure of that, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and tourism, why is it so much different than budget?
Right, so, so basically, the tourism group has not done a lot of spending. So basically, the tourism group has not done a lot of spending year to date. And they will though, so like that sundry contractor line, that's when they pay for the Ballpark Commons, license. So that payment will be made, hasn't been made yet. But they not have a tourism event. I forget, there was a marketing agreement that they were looking at possibly doing, and they did not do that either. And then, the advertising, the costs that are in there was the big, event they just had at the country club. What was it called?
The business
Appreciation. So that's what's sitting in there.
Huh?
But they had some plans. There were some things where they were looking at possibly either hiring a person or contracting for a person that would provide some services. That did not happen so far in 2020. I don't know if they're still planning to do that. But basically, the biggest item will happen that sundry contractor, where they will be paying for the ballpark.
Okay. In the capital improvement fund, there's 86,000 refund reimbursement. Improvement fund, there's 86,000 refund reimbursement.
Don't know that off the top of my head. I will get back to you on that. That's, that was the sale of Beulah Village, that's where we got those additional funds.
Okay, and I guess that
Right, so I will definitely get back to you on the 86,000. Nothing is coming to mind on that.
Any further discussions, anybody, on September? Or, I guess typically we take a motion and refer it on to the council with that one notation. I guess that would separately. I guess that would separately.
Very
Their motion to take, accept the September from the council.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second on the presentation of the 9-month September financial and the recommendation of council with one, follow-up item. Any further discussion on the September numbers? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. Let's talk about
So I did, I guess I do want to take a moment and just ask for a preference. So, I don't know if the memo or the bullet points or whatever is that format, something that you like a month.
Yep.
That's something we want on a quarterly basis. Just trying, sometimes I feel like I'm writing it and there isn't a lot of change, but that, if that's okay, and I'm saying the same thing as last month, I'm okay with that. It's just, it's just a preference thing, what works,
I kind of like it. I mean, I like seeing
what works.
I kind of like it. I mean, I like seeing the highlights. Some funds I know don't have activity certain time of the year, and I think don't necessarily write something just to fill out the page. If there's nothing there.
Okay.
I mean, once we see it a few times, most of us know if there's nothing going on. It's some of this. Once we see it a few times, most of us know if there's nothing going on. It's some of this stuff doesn't happen till last quarter or whatever.
I would think it's particularly helpful to non-financial people.
And I like seeing what's happening with the cash. Almost.
Okay.
I like seeing what's happening with the cash. Almost.
Okay. Fair enough.
You know, how he said that in the past.
The issue is sometimes the timing of the meeting. For instance, these financial statements were just finished. So to turn around a memo in time we're just finished. So to turn around a memo in time so I don't know if it would be better to delay it to the next meeting or include it in the meeting and send a memo later.
I think it'd probably be better to play it and have getting this at the meeting. I mean, it doesn't even give us time to look at it. Getting this at the meeting. I mean, it doesn't even give us time to look at it.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, a purpose of having the finance committee is to look at it. If we can't look at it, I mean, it doesn't lend much credence to recommending it to the general council.
There hasn't been a lot of what we will find in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We will be wrapping up the encumbrances, closing POs, things like that. So some of these where you see we've spent 14 million, but 1.1 million still in encumbrance, that kind of thing. Those hopefully we'll get in early January.
With the property taxes now, the 19,961, very close to, are there still outstanding, what's, you got outstanding, yeah,
County, mayor, I shouldn't say no, not fair. There's some very, very small property, but that's tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands.
are there still dollars that are tied up in litigation valuation numbers or assessment numbers?
So there are, but
Assessment numbers?
those are contingent numbers. So whatever was billed on the taxes in our financial records is owed. If there are changes, it comes across as an expenditure, not as a debit to the revenue or a deduct from the revenue. An expenditure, not as a debit to the revenue or a deduct from the revenue, if you will. So it
So those-
just shows up a little.
Those collections are already paid. Ones that are still under.
Yep.
Surplus looks pretty similar to where we were last month, up a little bit, just a quick review.
One of the things that Peggy and I had looked at on the solid waste collection, obviously, looking at what's some, if you look on page 4, the fund balance at the beginning of the year for solid waste is about $400,000, $491,000. So there is some room, you know, if we had to make it. We've already approved the rate for, so it's not like we can rates with some, so there is some. Do that.
There's no general fund balance sheet here.
Correct. I think that's only on the quarterly when we do that. That's why I was just following what was in previous monthly. I was just following what was in previous monthlies.
Yeah,
But-
these are both exactly what we've done in the past. The quarterlies are really beefed up, and your explanation was exactly spot on. I've asked that question numerous times. And then at the monthlies, they're just a little bit abbreviated.
But if
Income
that's
statement.
something that needs to, you know, I mean, if that,
The monthlies, they're just a little bit abbreviated.
but if
Income
that's
statement.
something that needs to, you know, I mean, if that's something you would prefer differently too, I just, no, okay, yeah, no, it's open to suggestion, correction, whatever we need.
So the question with the solid waste, so the question with the solid waste collection for with the balance 431, and then Peggy, you were talking about what your thoughts were on the 1-year contract, right? So that offset it, so there's no increase to the taxpayer on it.
Right.
Correct, there is no change. We just had a $5 increase last year,
Yeah.
so the mayor was pretty insensitive.
Okay.
So it is what it is, but yeah, we studied the fund balance. We're all the way back to 2014. Actually, we're likely going to end 2022 with a fund balance higher than we've ever had before. Perhaps we're going to be close to 2019, it was about 450. That's where we're estimating. There's really no use for that fund balance. We certainly want to have something, right, if something unexpected happens, but in solid
It's
waste.
always available, right?
Right.
It's an ongoing, recurring balance, so it doesn't, you don't have to use it or lose it. It's not like corporate America.
Correct.
All right, so that's good to know for the 1-year option, right? Thank you.
Before we kind of jump back to that, let's finish up the October statement if we can. I know we've had a brief time to look at this, but there are recommendations. I guess my thoughts is this is interim. We're close to year end. We'll be looking at November, December here. Relation it forward to the council.
Moving forward to the council.
Motion second to advance the October financials. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I must abstain because I didn't really have a chance to look at it.
Thanks, John. And I understand that. I hear where you're coming from, John. It's just the timing rather, because we may not meet in
Yeah.
December and then we're in
Right.
January ready and we'll be looking for.
Yeah.
in December, and then we're
Right.
in January ready, and we'll be looking for, November. November.
So one thing we could offer is the council meeting's not until December 6th. We have a fifth Tuesday next week. So if by chance you had some time to look them over and you had any questions, December 6th, we have a fifth Tuesday next week. So if by chance you had some time to look them over and you had any questions, we'd be happy to give directions out if needed or answer any questions you have in that.
All right, what do we have next?
I think we're,
October, back to the, recycling.
we're back on.
I didn't know if Nate was planning to stay or whatever, I assume that he may not, chat more. If, what would the circumstances be, Peggy, since there's not a signed arrangement, if we just extended this a year on our own, plan to do the bid next year, other than probably appointing them, or?
So, yeah, I mean, there's approximately $45,000, and again, that's on the diesel cost of a fuel surcharge that they've added to it. So that's really the only difference, because that's what the agreement says is CPI, which we're only. So the difference, the delta is that 45,000.
So
Yeah.
we're adjusting CPI monthly?
No, I just did the average of CPI up until this year. That's the problem. The CPI has to be done, that correction that we did up above, the CPI is based on the annual, which is the average of every one of the 12 months.
Okay,
The CPI is based on the annual, which is the average of every one of the 12 months.
okay, so we're not using like a June,
No,
whatever.
no, we're using a calendar, January, December. In fact, what happens then is they usually send out a January bill, and then they turn around, and then the CPI numbers come out in the middle of the month, and get it done, and send out a January bill, and then they turn around, and then the CPI numbers come out in the middle of the month, and get it done, and send out a revised bill. So I'd like to get that taken care of in the contract, but that's neither here nor there. This is the exact agreement that we would have, the 8%, but for the surcharge. And I did talk to Nate, just said they do not want us to go out to bid. I understand that, because there's a new player in town, there's other options. He told us verbally that we're not going to get better prices if we go out to bid. I don't know if that's true or not. I will tell you what he shared with, they're still paying for the carts. So they really want us to stay for at least 4 more years, which I think is the reason, because we asked him for a cap. The CPI is fair, I get it. There's a lot of years where the CPI is low, but when the CPI gets really high,
Yeah, both
you
ends.
can't match, good. But you can see we did enjoy some years of 1%, so that's why I wanted to show that. But I do think they come in competitively, and what we said when this year, we do get very, very good service from John's, and the community is happy with them. So this is nothing about John's. It's just 5 years is a long time.
Personally, the part I don't like about the 1 year is I think the worst possible time to be sourcing. You think the costs are gonna go down, a different hauler, is he gonna get like cheaper trucks or
Right.
cheaper length,
None of that's gonna happen.
So where does the cost reduction come from?
Yeah.
I almost look at the 5-year, roll with it.
Yeah,
Take
me
your
too.
savings now and go, because you run up 7%, 8% right now, you're never getting that back.
Plus you're rewarding their service, which has been good,
Right.
and that buy you a little credit in the future for other ones too.
I agree with you.
Well, let me just be clear. John's is a business, and they do their business for them. When they came in here in 2018 and asked the city to adjust because of the recycling coming to Tech, the city did it. When we asked them to carry this agreement with no fuel surcharge into here, they said no. I can tell you there was a lot of communities back here, they said no. I can tell you there was a lot of communities back in 2018 that didn't say, because there was an agreement in place. So I happened to be one of them. I was in sales at the time. And didn't. They said we need to reopen the contract because recycling went back. Our question to them was, will we reopen the one above? And a business, they do a very good job for the city, but they're looking out for the business. And this fuel surcharge, because the city opened for them back in 2008, is a bit of a slap in the face. It is what it is. And at this point, the economy and the terms and everything are in.
Well, the problem is that the fuel rates are so volatile that, you can almost not.
No, I mean, is there gonna be a recession in the next next year or two? There's probably a good likelihood that will be, but,
I know they're having trouble getting drivers.
oh, yeah.
I struggle with no comparators, all right? You've got no comparator here against his bid, and I can assure you, his bid is probably extremely aggressive at this. I'm guessing they put their best foot forward because they want to lock the city in.
Right.
The challenge I have is we have a comparator to look at that and say, you know what, wow, this is a great bid, let's take it, but then we don't have that. So I struggle and I say, okay, is option 3 the best? Because at least it gives us a chance to farm it out, and you have a fund that can cover some of the costs. Because at least it gives us a chance to farm it out, and you have a fund that can cover some of the costs. But yet, you've got a fuel surcharge here and a potential diesel fuel shortage that we know is going to happen in the southeast. When is it going to make its way up in Wisconsin, right?
Plus that's $110,000.
Make its way up in Wisconsin, right?
Plus that's $110,000 locked in loss.
It is, and what would it take to make it back? That's really the question. You know, if we had two more years of 7 to 8% inflation, well, then all of a sudden the 3-year looks pretty good, doesn't it? Inflation, well, then all of a sudden the 3-year looks pretty good, doesn't it? But then, you can't. Is the recession coming next year, or is it not coming for 3 years?
Well, that's why I
Or is it
asked
not
that
coming?
question, because if you're having stockpiles on recycling, that means you've got inventory backlog in my eyes, right? And you don't need to tap into that resource. So we're already probably in a recession right now. It just hasn't come official yet because of a labor shortage. But outside of that, he didn't give me the answers I wanted to hear for comparators. And I know that he has to know some of this data. He's not sharing it. And that's why I asked the questions I did to see if he'd come forth. Now, I didn't know about the 2018 where they asked the city to open up that contract. And the city agreed to that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very
Well, but the city also went at that time, was looking to go to the more often pickups, right, on the
Okay.
recycling. So
And
there
so
was something, but
I came
they
from Oak
won
Creek
in that
where
one.
recycling was every other week.
Yeah.
And now you were talking earlier, you see bins overflowing, and so is that really a problem going every other week? I mean, I don't know because I've never had that problem except at Christmas. So, you know, I don't know if that's even an option. I don't know can you negotiate with these people and say,
So, well, if you agree to a 5-year agreement, you can't, but if you would look at it, I mean, to my knowledge,
We're all excited about it,
my
yeah.
gut feeling is nobody's gonna wanna go backwards on that. It's really hard, refuse and recycling are both really hard once you have a service to go back. I mean, that's just.
cut back on the
one of
cops,
most
cut back
important
here, but
things.
don't take my garbage away from every other week.
Garbage and snow plowing, those are
Oh,
the keys.
Jesus, man. All right.
About it said it's easier, more efficient for them to weekly, whether the container's there or not, you put it out once a month, same thing. It's,
Yep.
Versus,
Here are my thoughts on this, because and you know, you all are probably more expert at this than I am, but being someone who studies economies, I would say it's going to be a slow trend. You're not going to see the surge downward that you saw surge upward. That's my concern with fuel costs, right? By having some type of cap and no fuel surcharge, maybe gas prices go down. We're just one more hurricane away from them going skyrocketing and off the charts, right? Or you're one refinery shutting down because of something. I don't know. There's too much speculation, but that would be the only argument for me for option for the 5-year one right there. And that would be Peggy slapping him on the hand saying, hey, you know what, don't come back to us again, right? But that's just personal perspective.
Yeah.
You guys have been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing it for 6 months. So
Those are really good thoughts, but can I just follow up?
Sure.
What do you think about CPI? Because I think CPI is much more critical in this equation than the fund balance, than the fuel surcharge is going to be. It's going to be worth more dollars, so that's really, I think, the major. It's going to be worth more dollars, so that's really, I think, the major is what's going to happen with CPI. fast. I mean, we've seen it tempered a little bit, right?
I
The
think
last
it's gonna
month,
come
6
down a little
weeks,
bit.
so
Yeah, I think it will too. I
Especially if
wouldn't
we
be
have a
surprised.
recession, now
Yeah.
it's really gonna come down.
My thought is if they put the 6% cap, I
Especially if
wouldn't
we
be
have a
surprised.
recession, now
Yeah.
it's really gonna come down.
My thought is if they put the 6% cap in for year 2 and 3 on the 3-year, we'll put on the 5-year. Even though he knows he has to wait, get there until year 4 and 5. I mean, he's not really giving up a whole lot in the second column because it's reopened year on year 3 anyway, right? So if inflation stays at 8%, which I don't think it will for 2 more years, I don't think it can.
No.
I don't think it can.
It's gonna
Fed
bust.
won't let it.
No, it's gonna bust. Mortgage rates are predicted to go anywhere from 8 to 10% now. And let me ask you this, all right? How do you renegotiate this? I mean, can you counteroffer this?
you can direct me to do that. I mean, I asked the question and I asked it for that very reason. He said no, but I'm very happy to make a call tomorrow and say, Finance Committee, when they deliberated on it before they sent it to council, they want to throw out a different.
That'll
The
get
worst
more-
he can do is say no,
With
right?
no comparatives, this is
Here, I get it. He's a nice guy. They've been the service is great. When I lived in Oak Creek, you know what? Yola was pretty good too. So I mean, we really didn't have any problems with them either. So, and before that, Waste Management was pretty good too. Before that, when the city ran it, it was pretty good. Before that, Waste Management was pretty good too. Before that, when the city ran it, it was pretty good. I really don't see any issues. And I realize he's a nice gentleman, and I'd love to see John's continue. But my gut tells me, you know, if we're going to do this, then there's some, you know,
Yeah.
there's some. Don't come back like you did in 18, right? Then there's some, you know,
Yeah.
there's some. Don't come back like you did in 18, right? Because I mean, he said Franklin's one of his biggest contracts, so they should be bound to us.
Right.
And without him coming saying, okay, comparatively speaking, when someone asked about other communities, not having that data to share, saying your pricing is similar. Comparatively speaking, when someone asked about other communities, not having that data to share, saying your pricing is similar or more aggressive than Greenfield right now. I'm like, here, you should have had that data. Said, here, this is what our bid for New Berlin was, and we came in percentage, you know, rate lower than that. But then I know that gets them in trouble with New Berlin,
You
right?
did say we are on the lower.
Compared to all the other communities, because
Right.
all the other communities are very small. So right, the
Okay.
larger the community, the more pickups,
Yeah.
the less your rate should be.
Okay.
So we
Volume.
did get that out of him, but
Right.
I can certainly call Greenfield and New Berlin.
Well, I'm going to defer to my colleagues here. That's just my argument. Because I like the guy, but I'd slap him on the hand.
Yes, I
And
think
it's the same
we
kind of
might have
mix.
more residentials than they
Just
do.
a
They have more
little mix.
multifamily businesses, that kind of thing. We probably have more pickups.
Okay. Thank you for listening.
The other thing is if they're growing substantially, I'm putting my servers to go down by default. Yeah, my thinking on this, I mean, I think staying out of the fuel surcharge is huge.
Yeah.
Would be beneficial to us, and if we could get a cap on the guy, I would like that. If we could get a cap on the guy, I would like that for council. Well, they did it on the 3-year. I don't know why it wouldn't be on the 5. He's at the same opener, reopener. We would have years. He'd have years 4 and 5 open.
Well, he has the cap on the 3-year, but no, he has. Well, he has the cap on the 3-year, but no, he has a fuel surcharge on.
Yeah, and if we're a good contract, why not offer it on the 5? That's the way I see it.
And we're not asking for all 4 years or 4. I suppose we could ask for it, but I'm saying, could we get it for the first 2? Because that's where every year or 4. I suppose we could ask for it, but I'm saying, could we get it for the first 2? Because that's where I see the inflation, potential being here. How quickly is it gonna start coming?
I think that's a fair counter. I mean,
Because if it stays high, he's still only 36 months away at max.
fair counter. I mean,
Because if it stays high, he's still only 36 months away at max from a whatever.
I don't really see
No.
And even with a 6% cap, if it stays high, that's still a pretty good increase.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, if I'll say we could throw.
That's still a pretty good increase.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, if I'll say we could throw in a floor or 2 or something, but that probably complicates it more than and they,
That's triple what it has been.
right,
Right.
I would think they would take those pretty, anyone on the council will obviously have to make this decision or where they want to go. I just look at it, yeah, $110,000 increase on a 1 year. And Peggy, I understand completely where we're done, you know, where you're coming from on this, on the bidding, and probably some of that falls on our summer if that's the council, felt. But I understand new people, a lot of moving pieces. Garbage collection is not the one problem that's on the city's mind, and I don't think there's much desire for us to back in house and try and do that.
So the thought would be then to counter the 5-year plan with a cap on the CPI for 24 and 25? Right? Did I hear you right then?
Yeah, that's
I think that's a
what I
great
was thinking.
suggestion.
Because I think that's where the risk is on the inflation. I think that's where the risk is on the inflation. But I'm of your mindset. You can tell what's happening in mortgage already. I mean, house buying cost, what is saying, 200 basis points. The same payment has to drop the purchase price to say 80-20, by 100, 150,000 has to drop the purchase price to say 80-20, by 100, 150,000 dollars. So put the brakes on. Those aren't brakes. I mean, that's hitting the wall.
Yeah.
So help me understand. I don't want to keep us here longer than we should. But so you'll get back to us on that, or how does that work?
So I have that down. You're recommending the 5-year. If we can get a 24 and 25, I'll pose it to you just like that. The answer is no. Are we still at the 5-year? And I'm only asking because my next step is to council on December 6th.
The only reason, and I agree with Ed, the only reason I'd consider that, if we get our bluff called, then it looks like we look weak moving forward as well in negotiations. But you go to option 3, you've got a fund balance to cover that for a year. But then you don't know what your bids are going to be, and there's a lot of risk there. And then they pull this bid, and now we got to start over. This is what the council wants, and we'll get back to you. And they say, no, we're standing firm at that, then we can make a decision after that. But we'd have to do that via email? Is that how that works?
We can't really do it email, but
Okay.
I could certainly contact him right away tomorrow.
Okay.
And then we needed a special meeting, we could do that.
I'm getting into the weeds, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've got 3 council members here, right?
Well, two
Share
shared.
two, and I
Yeah.
can certainly fill it.
I mean, again, you have to understand our role, and we're not the decision makers. We're
We're the advisors.
the advisors. To understand our role, and we're not the decision makers. We're
We're the advisors.
the advisors, and I think the council members get the gist of what we're talking here and shepherd that forward. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to either say we're going to bid this next year and bid our say we're going to bid this next year and bid our take our cost increase, go forward, or see if we can strike a deal.
We don't need to vote on it.
Well, we would make a motion, points well taken. What's the alternative?
But you'll have that conversation before.
Right. And council will know that committee made this recommendation with this, went back and tried to renegotiate with the contractor, either successful or it wasn't. Here we are, but I guess before I then say to council, what's plan B?
Yeah. I mean, the 1 year seems 8% and the fuel. I mean, like that's kind of we're just in the wrong market
Yeah,
for that.
it's like trying to go buy a new car when there's no cars.
Right. Exactly.
You go for option 3, they're slamming you, right? I mean, you're getting financially slammed, right? And then you're almost forced to go out and take another bid. Because now it's like, pardon me, it's like to you, screw you. You're not going to give us if we're that valued of a customer to you, then this should be a little bit better than what it is at option 3, right? Valued of a customer to you, then this should be a little bit better than what it is at option 3, right? So I don't know. You
An
guys,
alternative, Peggy, is if they say, no, they don't want the 36-month, 6% cap, then, put it in for 24. Because then that gives us 24 months. And again, inflation, I think, for 24. Because then that gives us 24 months. And again, inflation, I think, by that time is after. If it's still there, then we're gonna be in serious.
I agree with that
serious
alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
actually a good
just
call.
playing a devil's advocate. So this is what we want to,
Good
just
call.
playing a devil's advocate. So this is what we want on the 5-year. No, I'm not going to do that. Well, then we're going to do the 1 year. He knows it would be a hit, and then he'll know that we'd have to go and bid it out the following year. So now he's at risk of losing the whole deal.
The whole deal.
And I will tell you, if we bid this out,
The whole deal.
The whole deal.
and I will tell you, if we bid this out, it's a hot market. We will get bids. We will get good parties. Now, is the administration going to be easy if we have to switch? No, because if it's us getting the carts or the contractor getting the carts, it's gonna be, if it's us getting the carts or the contractor getting the carts, it's gonna be, some issues. But
I'm more concerned with somebody telling you, yeah, we're going to come in, we're going to do this, it's going to be great, and then it isn't.
Yeah, right.
That's why I asked about the new kid on the block, right? Are they an established entity or are they new?
we have come up with already three. So Green for Life, Succession, right?
No, right.
There's it's the consortium one, the Milwaukee consortium one.
The other part about, I don't like about the market, Peggy, is if, and again, I don't know this market, but if there's no value in recyclables right now because the economy is slowing, that's just another item that's going against us. We got high fuel, high labor, and no, because most of them trying to offset, say, well, we'll kind of do well, if you can't sell it on the back end.
Well, that's where we're at right now. We're getting zero credit for our recycling. We're paying almost as much for that as we are for refuse. So we're paying on garbage $5.75, well, under option one, $5.75, and we're paying $5.63, $5.75, well, under option one, $5.75, and we're paying $5.63 for recycling. So we're there. We're paying darn near as much for recycling as we are refuse.
Well,
But
that's
we're
what
about
I'm
as
saying
bad as
is-
it can get there, because the worst case is 12 cents more and just put it all in the landfill. We're about as bad as it can get there, because the worst case is 12 cents more and just put it all in the landfill. That's the
Right.
cheapest part for us. We have a landfill. And that's the other part that I'm not sure they're really giving full credit for is the landfill piece.
When you say giving us credit for,
Well, see, we
they
just
say pay the tipping, you just don't have to pay the deposit.
the extra fees, right? So they would pay a premium if it wasn't our landfill. So my question is, they're not getting margin.
Right. But I
Usually
suspect
that's
that,
the way it works.
Well, you know, if you get the numbers.
Exactly.
well, that would be the other thing, I think, you talk to Greenfield or both of them, pretty close in size. I mean, if they're in unless something, and I would agree with you, Peggy, the bidding of it, I think needs to be done, it's just, I just don't know that this market's gonna build anything for much. I might be very wrong.
The question is, how can you get an understanding of if this bid is really aggressive without a bid? And because I think you're right, 100%, and I support this, but you take the chance, right? Welcome to stock market 101, right?
Right.
My gut says if they do the 3-year or even the 2-year, you take the chance on the 5-year contract. My gut says if they do the 3-year or even the 2-year, you take the chance on the 5-year contract. That's what my gut says.
Well, yeah, you got this $100,000 plus savings in year one, plus you got a 4% cap in year one. Get something for 2, you're halfway through the deal. By the one, get something for 2, you're halfway through the deal. By then, you start yourself.
My guess, Peggy, is when you do talk to them, say, here, I'm fighting for you, not to have them bid it out. I don't know if you can, what verbiage you can use in compliance.
Well, that would be it. The recommendation is for the 5-year if we get, that would be it. The recommendation is for the 5-year if we get
Yeah.
cap, otherwise we're looking at the other option. Right?
Yeah,
That's what I just,
think that's
that's
perfect.
what I just heard.
Yep.
We don't have to commit, and in the end, again, the worst.
Well, you've done your due diligence, thank you. Well, you've done your due diligence, thank you.
Well, and the other thing he's got hanging out there, if they amortize those carts
Yeah.
over a 5 or 10 year, what's the life of those plastic carts? So you should get 10 years out of them unless you run them over umpteen many times. But if there's no's, I mean, they don't want to have to pull that back in and absorb that cost in a 1-year deal. If they cancel the deal, all that can go right forward, and we don't want to necessarily. Right, it's working. It's not an issue. Be kind of my thought. Trash.
New business opportunity for you.
Yeah, we do. The new newsletter, top line. Everybody is going to deliver their own trash, right?
And when I lived in Rhinelander for a year and a half,
And
that's
then
what you did.
Yeah.
Deliver-
Some of them have that stickers on the bag or whatever, 75 cents a bag or whatever. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh,
Used to drive.
what else we got left?
Not much, I don't think.
I'm off tomorrow, so Uncle Tito's stopping by.
Recommendation on that one.
How do you want to leave this?
So I think I heard you want to make a recommendation for the 5-year if we can get a % rate cap on 24 and 25, or consider other options.
Well, I think the council would consider a cap on 24 too. If that
Oh, sorry. A was 24, 25. B is C. Then would be consider other options.
Perfect, right?
And again, I don't know that I would tell him that or say that, but I mean, I don't know. Council members are on that side. I mean, you guys are the ones that are going to have to decide. But I mean, I think if you could get 24 months out of 60 protected, especially where we're sitting right now, right? So should we make a motion to that effect? What's the pleasure? What's it? Can we put that all in there? But you'll have data and results prior to that. Data and results prior to that. And if it's possible, I don't know how close you are with New Berlin, but if you make that call, Peggy, and see where they're at.
For sure.
So the motion would be to direct the administrator to present that back.
Well, to first of all, visit with both Greenfield and New Berlin, comparable sites, if you care, or share data, and then also to talk to John and see if we can get some kind of upside CPI protection. Another 5 years.
So if you can wordsmith that, I would make this a motion.
So the committee is recommending staff to, number 1, check the comparables to ensure, especially with the like size, check the comparables, and then recommend 5 years, it's 25, and then recommend 5 years, it's 25 rate cap, or 24 rate cap, or consider other options.
It's a great discussion. I mean, that's what gets shit done. No, we're not on camera, are we?
Sound
Audio.
Just get recorded.
That's all right. It was the other joke.
No, that's the way it should be, right? Where we talk about it and come up with viable solutions.
All right. So Ed, is that a motion?
Come up with viable solutions.
All right. So Ed, is that a motion?
Yes.
I have a second.
Okay, we have a motion from Ed, Michelle, will second it. In terms of the recommendation to the council about, solid waste, and recycling contracts for potentially the period of 23 through 27. Any further discussion on that recommendation being made? Thank you, Peggy, for that. I think some good data there. What do we have left?
The next item was just to let you know that the November 15th, we had the budget hearings, and the budget was approved.
But not
Yeah,
the item.
prior
Right.
to that, there was some drama, but no, the hearing,
Oh,
there was
is it-
just a few, there were actually a few citizens'
Couple comments, yeah, we had a couple citizens' comments. They weren't there for the budget, but they happened to chime in,
So they
and
stayed.
they were very appreciative, all of
Yeah,
your
since,
contributions.
yeah, council obviously was very budget changes, really. They were modifications, mostly, all related to capital. Alderwoman Hanneman requested basically a reallocation of some of the parks capital to a different project. Taking away a few things that were new, focus on some repairs for tennis. Taking away a few things that were new, focus on some repairs for tennis courts. So within the same budget, within capital, but basically around in the parks area. Alderman Holfer requested that we reallocate some funds for curbs and gutters. So basically reallocate some funds for curbs and gutters. Basically calling it out, making sure that we had some money set aside rather than all buried. And then the last one was a 2024 item. Alderman Wilhelm asked that we remove an item that was out in 2024. She just wanted it taken out.
Yeah.
That was it. So those few things.
Well, the park should be in at least kind of a temporary, or should have a temporary, or should set us up with a land purchase, right? Get us going down the road, so we're not having that bulldozer right behind their backs on that thing.
And that's, I think, was her focus. Now that they'd made that purchase,
Okay,
repair.
all right. Okay,
Repair.
all right. Well, good. As we couldn't move forward without an approved budget, right? That would be a bad way to start 20. Right, Peggy?
Of course.
And then we have item number talks about the revised and updated code of conduct. Everybody read that, I'm sure, with great enthusiasm. Any comments or questions? My only item was, what was changed?
There really weren't a lot of substance. It was a lot of, I don't like this wording, let's put this wording, limiting council members, communications with outsiders. Really, there was, as far as code type items, there were, I do have a red line version I'm happy to, but it was really just common council, contact with other outside aid. What do they do on behalf of themselves or on behalf of the council? And instead of coming out and saying that they weren't acting on behalf of the council, they just had to say they were acting on behalf of themselves instead of not saying. So they just had to say they were acting on behalf of themselves instead of not saying. So, Samantha.
This document originate, is this being used statewide?
This document originated from actually a pretty serious violation complaint that we received back in February 2021 that we went through with our insurance company, and a strong recommendation with the decorum.
Okay, I thought it was very well done. Yeah, when I started reading it, I thought it was the kind of the red line I'm looking for. And it's like, well, what's changed? You know, and then I think, this is. because I do remember getting it, when did we get, 2 years ago?
Last fall, last November.
So that was the follow-up. Any other discussions on that? You guys obviously. And then I guess we move on to item number 9, topics for next meeting. We got OPEB performance, down $1 million.
Which hasn't been great.
Yes.
Then consideration of the investment manager agreement.
Actually, Principal Financial Group, that was the group that does our old retirement plan. We had an in-depth conversation with them. We're certainly, all three of them are still in, it's Principal, US Bank, and Drake and Associates. And we think all of them have, what are the fees, what are the funds, choices. We would just like them to present that to you. But we kind of have a gut feeling that maybe a company that's not currently doing our retirement plan would be a better choice. I'm not an investment person. Denise is an investment person. Likely, whoever comes behind us will not be investment people. Sometimes it's a person. Denise is an investment person. Likely, whoever comes behind us will not be investment people. Sometimes it's nice to have 2 different financial advisors for those separate areas, just to give us a better point of reference. So that was our only gut feeling we talked about. But I think they can all do the job, and I think they'll all do it. Gut feeling we talked about. But I think they can all do the job, and I think they'll all do it reasonably. Drake and Associates would not be a custodian. The custodian would say separate. The other 2, U.S. Bank and Principal, both would want to be custodian advisor, which is not out of. It used to be in our world. We didn't allow that. It's common. There's a lot more checks and balances in place, and really there's some efficiency that they obtain by doing that. So I wouldn't say that would be a showstopper either way.
The liability. Okay, so we can all put that on our dates. We have down December 27th. I guess that's following the Tuesday protocol, right?
Right.
This stuff at the end of the year, again, this is in past, and John, I think it's kind of, chime in here if you want, kind of view these as the burning issue at the moment, the hot topics. If everything is kind of going as is and nothing earth-shattering, can we cancel it or whatever? I'm surely not against that, but part of it is, what do we have left to cover that still needs but part of it is, what do we have left to cover that still needs? And at the 27th, I'm guessing that's probably too late to get anything back to council, or what the scheduling.
Council will be then on the 3rd, so the very next day.
Yeah, so that's changed. Yeah, so.
And on the 3rd, so the very next day.
Yeah, so that's changed. Yeah, so reality is probably won't be much affecting this year unless it's something needs attention. First of 23. So I don't know. You want to leave that open and talk before then?
So yeah, and we can certainly pull the other date that we had just looked on the calendar for would have been 12/21. Wanted to for the holidays versus during the, or would have been 12/21. Wanted to for the holidays versus during the holidays. Really, the big item is going to be the OPEB manager. It's something we really haven't gotten to quicker. We would really like to get that wrapped up, but it happens in January. That's okay. But the 27th or the 21st, and we can certainly. But the 27th or the 21st, and we can certainly, first, second week, pull forum, or if you have a at this point.
I prefer the 27th after.
December, so I don't care.
But you're in town?
Yeah, I'm in
Yes,
town. The January meeting is going to be, I'll be out of town for that one, so I'm good for December.
I have no preference.
I guess the 27th.
All right, anything else? not, I think we can take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second on the adjournment.